Is it a sin to complain?
Welcome back to Exodus 14, one of my absolute favorites in the entire Bible.
Why is it one of your favorites?
Because there's so much stuff happening. The splitting of the Red Sea.
Oh, the famous Exodus story.
Exactly. The climax of after all the 10 plagues, and then Pharaoh finally getting defeated by drowning.
Drowning other people.
And his 600 chariots, who obviously had horses and people on it.
Ooh, okay. Let's focus on the other part.
Okay. So it starts with God commanded Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt towards the Red Sea. And the people actually complained because they saw Pharaoh chasing them. Because what happened to Pharaoh after the Israelites left?
We said earlier he drowned.
No, before he chased after them. What happened then?
He decided, like, guys, what did we just do? Let's go after the Israelites because we don't have any slaves. We can't build pyramids anymore, so we have to go. Did they build pyramids in Exodus?
That's actually a really good question I've been wondering about. I'm not sure.
Only God will know.
Only God will know. But nonetheless, that is what happened.
Yeah.
They realized, what have we done? Our slaves are gone, and they chased after them with his 600 best chariots and horses and chariot men.
For what? Just to drown?
Yes. And they thought they're going to get them back. They're Egypt. They're this big nation, even though they got humiliated 10 times with the plagues. And when they got there, what happened?
When they got there, they were, the Israelites were protected and they were put in sunlight, probably hunky-dory. And then you have the Egyptians in darkness, almost like the good and bad. So the
literally
evil in darkness,
yeah,
trying to go, but there was the angel of, what type of angel?
The angel of the Lord. People believe, like me, that it's Jesus himself.
Wow.
Because that's the same angel that spoke in a burning bush who said, I am who I am.
Okay.
So the angel of the Lord is another name for God.
Okay.
And he was in between the armies of Egypt and Israel. They were in light, they were in darkness.
And here I actually have
a
note about, like, give God the steering wheel.
Okay.
And because what did Moses do during that time while they were waiting, or why were they waiting?
They were waiting because they came to the Red Sea, and obviously there's water. How are they going to get across? And the Israelites complained, were there not enough graves to bury us in Egypt, and you brought us out here to die? Okay. But then he went to Moses went to God.
Yeah.
And then he cried out to him, and God says, why do you cry out to me? Tell them to move on.
Move on. And it's like, we have to give the steering wheel to God, because we have to move on. We have to put our faith in God, our eyes upon him, which is also mentioned a few times in other places. And the physical manifestation was actually... What? Okay, so there was a physical manifestation that took place, which was the Red Sea splitting. And there was, I would say, almost like a spiritual war taking place, because you have to actually, for instance, with Moses, he literally focused only on God, while the Egyptians were back there, was back towards them. So he's trusting God fully that this thing will open up, and he was in the water apparently. So that means he was also getting very cold. It's like, I'm not gonna die now. I'm not gonna die. So just open this sea.
So you said something where putting your trust in God, giving him the steering wheel. It says in the famous chapter 14, verse 14, these Egyptians you will never see again.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And then he stood all night long, probably knee deep or ankle deep, I'm not sure. And he stood there, and the entire night long, so it was hours and hours, and an east wind blew, and then it finally split. It wasn't in an instant. It was
not like
really
in the movies.
long.
No,
the movies have it wrong.
But hey, movie time, it's got to be quick.
True, but you could do a time lapse.
Still, movie time.
If I make an Exodus movie...
For the plot, man.
It would be accurate. When I make an Exodus movie, it's going to be accurate.
Okay.
So He stood there entire night long as it split open, and then they were finally able to cross over on dry ground. And that's about 600,000 people, or maximum 2 million.
So it's taking a while to get across.
You can imagine how long it takes. And for the Israelites and, ancient Israel, they saw the ocean as a chaotic place because they even today, we haven't discovered everything of the sea. So just imagine how they felt back then, that they were intimidated by this 70% of the world is this undiscovered chaotic waters. So if they walked between that must have been some experience to see a whale or a shark or some kind of jellyfish as they were walking between them. I would have loved to be there.
I got some.
Imagine being the whale.
It's like, what is this? I can't get to the other side.
I got some beef with a 70% fact.
Why?
Because 70% of the Earth is covered in water. Not 70% of the Earth is water.
Oh,
because there's more land underneath the water.
Oh, to keep it afloat.
Gravity. Let's not get into that. That's
I don't understand it
tangent.
because I'm not really good at science.
It means that
Layers of the earth journey to the center of the earth.
Oh, right, layers.
It's not a
Anyways, it was the entire night that it blew, and by the time they got to the other side, it was sunrise. So Moses and everyone had to pull an all-nighter as they were running for their lives, and then finally God made the waters crash down again. And I sometimes imagine how violent the waters must have hit you while chasing them on a horse. So it would have hit you. Even the impact alone would kill you, or the impact would hit you against the chariot and you bash open your head.
Yeah, and also it takes me back to when I was in Lebanon. So you have the northern part and the southern part, and the southern part is a dangerous area. And there were 2 universities, and our living space, hotel was at the northern one, not at the southern one. But so then arriving there at the other side in the morning at sunrise is actually a beautiful thing, because it's also symbolizing that God is there for you. Because when we were in that dangerous area driving, because we sit in the right hand seat and there was the left hand seat, and it was manual. My dad wasn't used to that, and then it was up the mountains and everything, and we drove in the dangerous area. There were military and all that stuff, and we didn't come into any harm, luckily. But that's straight after the flight. We landed there, and we only arrived at sunrise at our place.
Wow.
And it was such a beautiful thing, because it's you see the whole place just being lit up, and and also you just feel like God had your back in that whole time.
Okay. Wow. And I actually like how you put it, when you got to the other side and when they got to the other side, there was light. The sun rose, new beginning. And that's when the people put their trust in the Lord and Moses, their leader, which links really well with the previous chapter where it says, don't curse your leaders. And we have to be careful as Christians to not do that, because we can so easily curse the president or complain about them and all those things.
We complain very easily when we don't have the control of something, but feel like we do, but we don't. Micromanaging.
Yeah, and micromanaging is also overthinking, which we discussed before recording.
Is it a sin to complain?
I would say no, because David complained to the Lord where it was legitimate issues that he was concerned about. But I think there should come a distinction where you just complain and you're ungrateful. Then it becomes a wrong thing, which is actually a good question, because later in this book, it's actually literally chapter 16, 2 chapters from now, they complained about the food and they did it against the Lord. Wow. So I think there's a difference between complaining to God about something that's really an issue, and then just grumbling against him on purpose makes it wrong. Does that answer your question?
That does answer the question.
Okay. So chapter 14 is the climax of how Pharaoh, because he was seen as a god, was also killed. And now, if you think back to Egypt,
You
they
had
were...
a chance. You had a chance, and you still screwed it up.
And Pharaoh, you could say he had a hard heart, so
Yeah.
he sank like stone, technically, if you think
He
about
sank
it.
like a pebble.
Like a pebble, because his heart was as hard as a stone.
Hmm.
And God said his heart would be hard.
That's a good one.
But just think about, I was always curious about what happened to Egypt after this, because they got humiliated 10 times with the plagues. Their whole religion was thrown over and over again and shattered. And then they lost their army and their leader. And Pharaoh, his son, also died. So I was always curious, how did they recover? I'm not sure if there's a documentary about it, but I would find that interesting.
It would be interesting.
But for the next chapter, it actually kind of repeats chapter 14.
Okay.
It's just said in the form of a song of what happened in chapter 14. But chapter 14 is, you can say, the battle of the gods, or it's the Lord versus Pharaoh, and Pharaoh lost. Which is great, because this kind of feels like the end of the book, but there's still the majority of the book left, which we will get to from chapter 15.
The next episode.
Awesome.